Good. So as said, my name is Dr. Elom Hilary Ochi, the Technical Director for AfIHQSA. I'm joined in the call from Accra, Ghana. So this is, I think, our 6th webinar or 11th webinar in the year. And for this, we are looking at publishing your quality improvement project, where and how. But before I introduce the speaker for the day, we are also joined by the Executive Director for AfIHQSA, so he will just share some quick insights and some brief introductions, and then we will continue. So Dr. Gilbert Battle, over to you.
Okay, hello, Elom. Can you see me? I can't see myself.
Yes, I can see you.
What do I look like?
I can see your spectacles.
Great. Greetings to all our participants on the call. We are really appreciative of you making the time to join us. It is the intent of AfIHQSA, in collaboration with ISQA, to be able to put out more evidence in simple ways that others, ourselves who are already a part of the choir, and others who are interested in quality can see what is being done, how it is being done, and the impacts that it has on our society and in the healthcare space. I would like to wish us all a pleasant webinar. The learning is yours. The chat box is open, and when there's time given for questions and answers, we will encourage you all to make your voices and your opinions heard. Elom, thank you very much. Over.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much. So as has been said, this webinar is in collaboration with ISQA. ISQA is the International Society for Quality in Healthcare. So our speaker for the day is Richard Greenhill. So Richard is Assistant Program Director and Assistant Professor at Texas Technical University Health Sciences Center in the Department of Healthcare Management and Leadership, School of Health Professions. His health administration teaching courses include quality and risk leadership, health informatics and data analytics, strategy, decision sciences, and global health. In addition, he teaches Six Sigma Green Belt and project management certification prep at the Texas Technical University Ross College of Business in the professional and STEM MBA programs. So he's a recognized leader in healthcare quality, project management, and performance improvement. And he brings more than 27 years of experience as a highly skilled practitioner. His prior roles include executive leadership in healthcare operations, strategy, quality, and project management. And he has an extensive knowledge and experience in change leadership and management. Richard, again, is the deputy editor for the International Journal for Quality in Healthcare Communications, an Oxford University Press and ISQA journal. He serves on the editorial board of the Journal of Health Administration Education and the general board of the College for Behavioral Health Leadership. Dr. Greenhill is a seasoned Lean Six Sigma Black Belt practitioner and finishing requirements for Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. He is a Teams Steps Master Trainer, project management professional, certified professional in healthcare quality, and a fellow of the International Society for Healthcare Quality, that is ISQA. He maintains a board certification in healthcare management, and he is also a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. So, it couldn't have been by any better guest that we have. So, Richard, please over, and thank you very much. Kindly note your questions. You can share your questions in the chat, or you wait at the end of the session, you can ask your questions. So thank you very much, and over, Rich.
Thank you, Dr. Elom, and Dr. Gilbert, thank you all for having me today. I appreciate you, and thank you everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. It's morning here in Texas. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you. Thank you for coming. So I hope today to share some thoughts with you around, all of us are out there in the field working hard, making change, making improvement around the world. And there's an opportunity for us to share our work with others. And so I want to talk to you about publishing your improvement projects and where you can do that, how, and some of the mechanisms behind it. So if you have any questions, as Dr. Elam said, just put them in the chat. There'll be plenty of time at the end for us to answer questions. I don't have a long presentation. I wanted to be more to give you some facts and some thoughts, and then have you chime in. So let's get started. So today's agenda, what I'm going to do is talk to you about why you should think about publishing your work. Again, we're all working to improve healthcare around the world and in our respective areas and countries. And so we're going to discuss that. We're also going to look at some of the avenues, or what I call venues for publication, some of the pros and cons about each, and share those with you. And then I'm going to pivot to journals, which is the preferred method for publishing, I presume, and what you should look for in a journal, how you should screen and think about picking a journal and choosing a journal to send your work to. And then I'm going to talk to you about considerations when you're running quality improvement projects around how you should think when you're considering publication. And the last thing, I want to talk to you about opportunities to publish in our journal. So as Elam said, I'm the deputy editor for the International Journal for Quality and Healthcare Communications. It's an ISQA journal. And greetings from our editor-in-chief and my co-deputy editor who could not be here today. All right, let's get going. So when we think about, I'd like to frame our discussion first, just around quality and process improvement. So when we think about quality, I want to narrow us down to 3 big steps that we take as practitioners. The first thing that we do when we are considering a quality, or QI project is, there's some problem to be solved. So what we do is we go through a process to identify the problem. We set up our mindset and maybe a charter or whatever, and we think about what the problem is. Do we have data, and what are we going to do about it? The next step for us as practitioners, or if you're around the quality space, after we know what the problem is we want to determine what tools or methods are we going to use. Are we going to use Lean, Six Sigma, PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act, Plan, Do, Check, Act, and others? And after we have a good sense of the type of tools we want to use, the last thing we do is we conduct our project, we go through the process, and when we're done, we want to know, what were the results? Did we make a difference? And if we did make a difference, are those results sustainable? The next thing that's more difficult, well, sustainability is difficult, as you all know, probably, but the other thing is, we capture best practices in a way that we can share them internally. So if you're part of a hospital and you conduct a process improvement project, have you documented it well enough that you can have that knowledge management to share it internally? And so I have coined QI projects in really 3 levels: a macro level, meso level, and the micro level. And so when we think about QI projects at the macro level, of the very high level, maybe you're part of a health ministry. I know we have a large cross-section of professionals here today, which I'm so happy that you're here. But as we think about the macro level, though, and we're thinking about projects, maybe at the health ministry level, there are large implementations, or we're thinking about rollouts across hospitals in our countries, or and so forth. So these are projects that you might consider, publishing if there's a real difference. I'll just say that these are a little bit harder because they're higher level. It's more difficult to pinpoint things, but these might be a good article for a perspective or an editorial. Then at the meso or middle level, I call it regional or health system level. So if you're part of a health system that has a bunch of hospitals, or you're part of a regional area where there's a lot of clinics, you might run the types of projects where you have implementations of protocols or best practices and so forth. An example is, you might see that there were a lot of lessons learned from using the incident command system during COVID. That would be a fabulous type of project to consider for publication. I have a very popular podcast here, and I spoke to someone from the WHO a few weeks ago, and they did just this. They rolled out all these different things, and they're considering publishing it in some fashion. So this is an opportunity as well. And at the micro, the hospital level, local level, clinic level, we work on a lot of process improvement projects. Maybe it's workflow redesigns or optimizations or streamlining. And the example here is, you might consider if you rolled out or, optimized a screening protocol for metabolic syndrome, that's something that you might consider publishing. If you implemented a new laboratory services process to, let's say, reduce cost per test, that's something that's publishable. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the mindset we need to have as we think about publishing in just a second. So why should we publish? That's a good question. I think your very presence and the fact that we had all of these individuals from around the world signed up, it underscores that there's a need for shared knowledge of improvement. If we're doing something great here in the United States, maybe you want to know about it in Africa or Indonesia or another area in the world. So publishing helps you accomplish that. So you help other people. It also shares the great work that you're doing around the world to improve healthcare. I mean, no one has gotten it right because we all still have the same type of problems. I've worked around the global health milieu for a long time, and what I'm beginning to see as I grow older in my career is that all of us have the same problems. They're a little bit different, but we could learn from each other if we share, and that's sort of the spirit of IHQSA. If you're part of the International Society for Quality in Healthcare, that's one of the main goals, is sharing best practices and knowledge. In addition, publishing, as I just noted, builds the body of best practices. So we know what we know about sepsis prevention and management, but if everybody shared their knowledge, it would really fortify best practices around the world. That when you have an issue and you're thinking about running a project, you could go to those best practices first to see if somebody's already done the work. Maybe you don't want to start up another project. Maybe you can just build off of what someone else has done and optimize it for your work area. In addition, it creates a community. Publishing creates a community for people to reciprocate and share and work together. For organizations that are seeking similar or the same types of solutions for problems. And last, it really means that if you're publishing, it makes you an expert among your peers. It demonstrates your expertise among your peers, which is important to us as we get older in our careers and looking toward our legacy in retirement. So the next thing I want to talk to you about, because some of us may not be around academia or the publishing sort of environment. So I want to just quickly go over what peer review is. So peer review is a really old process that's been around for hundreds of years, where you, at a basic level, you have experts who have expertise in certain areas review the manuscript or research of others to validate that those findings are relevant. And this is a means to reduce bias. And we do that by a couple of ways. So we have different ways that we conduct peer review. Peer review can be done single blind, which the reviewers don't know who the authors are, but the editor does. We could do double blind, where you submit a manuscript or a document, and neither the editor nor the reviewers know who the person submitting was. And then there's something called open peer review, where everybody can see everybody's name. Now, there's obviously different, pros and cons to each of these, but blind review is the best because you don't want people to say, oh, I know her or him, and I'm not going to approve their paper because I know them. Or the other way, that people get pushed through the system because they are well known. So we want this process to be as bias-free as possible. That's the key to peer review. It is considered the gold standard around the world. So let me walk you through, since some of us may not be around the space and know what happens on the back end of publishing, and this is particular to journals. When a manuscript or a write-up, we call it a manuscript, is entered. So what happens first? You submit a manuscript about your findings. It's checked by an editor like myself or our editor-in-chief, and we determine if it's, good for the journal, if it meets the basic aims of the journal. It's like a triage. If we decide that it's not, we reject it and send it back to the author. The next step is, if it makes it through the screening by an editor, then we send it to reviewers, people who have volunteered their time and expertise out in the field to review different articles and read them and give their unbiased input. And like I said, in the blind review process, they don't know who sent the publication. They're just reading it as without a name on it. After that, the reviewers will return the manuscripts to the editors. They've been scored with comments and areas for improvement, or they'll say that they reject it. And then there are 3 outcomes that come from your submission to a peer review process. Either your manuscript is accepted for publication, which rarely happens the first time. There's always things to be done, misspellings, all that kind of stuff. So it's very rare that it's accepted the first time. Or the second outcome is a revision. We send it back to the author and say, please fix these 10 things, these 5 things, and so forth. And so, that's most often what happens for a lot of journals. And then the last is rejection. Sometimes, when people send manuscripts to the journal, it's a good write-up, but it doesn't fit the aim of the journal. Or sometimes the writing is very poor and so forth. And so it's just rejected. So this is peer review. It's an unbiased process that we use primarily in journal type situations. And this is what to expect at a high level. There's a lot that goes on behind here. So it's not quite this simple, but this is an overview for you. So let me tell you now a little bit about publication venues or avenues. So, there's several ways. I mean, this is not an all-inclusive list, but if you just did a great project or ran a great project in your facility and you're thinking, I'd love to publish this, you might decide to put it in a book. Maybe there's a book coming up and you think, oh, I could put this in a book. And, some of the pros one of the pros to writing books is that it can have financial returns and, you can make royalties off the book. All books don't pay. So it's just, you have to get with the right publisher. And that's a process on its own. Some of the cons about publishing in books is they're not peer reviewed. So most textbooks that you read, most of them, not all of them, are not peer reviewed. So that means that a professor, usually like myself or someone else who has great experience, is spoken to by a publisher, or sometimes they reach out to experts like you all to write a chapter, write a paragraph, and so forth to go into a book. Well, it's not, it doesn't go through a peer review process most oftentimes. So there's possibility for introduction of bias. And the other con is it's a really long process to get a book published. I'm finishing up a textbook right now that's been going on for a year and some change. It's a book here in the United States. So peer review journals. Now, this is the gold standard for us, especially in the quality milieu, because we want to get our work out there. But the pro of using peer review journals, like the one I'm deputy editor on and the editorial board for others, is it goes through a rigorous process of vetting. Not only do we send it out to reviewers for content, we have people look at the statistics to make sure it was all run properly. So by the time it gets done, that it's a good product. And this also lends itself to the credibility of your publication. So if you just did a project where you transformed something in your country, it's an implementation project, and you say, wow, this would be great to share with the world, peer review, I believe, is the way to go. Now, the con is, I put the pro is a rigorous process for vetting. That's also a con because it can take a long time. If any of you have ever submitted to a journal, you know that it can take, a considerable amount of time depending on the journal. I've had manuscripts sit in peer review for a year. So there's a whole host of reasons for that. If you are interested, I can answer those when we're done. But there's a lot of reasons that things get hung up in peer review. And the others are trade journals. Trade journals are good because, they go out to large amounts of people and, your peers will see what you're doing and that kind of thing. Again, it's not peer reviewed. So there's potential for bias, which is a problem. Same thing for white papers. White papers is something that your organization could write to get information out quickly. but again, it's not peer reviewed. You know, white papers have to be posted somewhere. So where do you post a white paper? I mean, if you're part of the international quality community, you know that IHI does post a lot of white papers, but getting a white paper into IHI is not easy, for example. So there's location barriers or where to publish. And as I said, bias. Now your organization might publish your, findings, which is great. And that helps tout the organization's success and what you're doing. But again, it's not peer reviewed and it's subject to organizational bias. If you didn't do great on your project, are you really going to tell everybody that you didn't do great? So one of the keys about peer review journals is that along with all the great findings in a peer review journal, they also have to list the limitations. And so it gives the reader a balanced view of here's what the research or the implementation accomplished, and here is the limited way that it can be used. And then magazines are another way also to get information out there. It's hard to find magazines though, and so forth. So these are just some of the venues. I believe that journals are the best way for this type of work. And like I said, it is a process that I went to a little bit earlier, but they're the best way. Now, let's say you're thinking about, okay, well, Rich, that's great. I want to put my research or my implementation, my project in a journal. What do I look for in a journal? Now, this is something that's a subject of much debate these days. The first thing is it peer reviewed? And so being peer reviewed means that the process that I just showed you, it goes through a rigorous process. Now, you always want that. Now, what type of peer review is also important. If it's open peer review, there's pros and cons to that. If it's blind peer review, single blind or double blind, there's pros and cons to both of those as far as bias. Now, this number two is, are there shady publishing practices? So what that means is that oftentimes, let me give you an example. Oftentimes when you publish open access, which means that anybody can read the journal, that comes with a higher price because what happens is that the journal passes the cost of licensing on to the authors. That's a normal thing, but the process of paying should happen after peer review is done. If you ever have a journal tell you, oh, Rich, hey, you have this great article. If you give me $50 or whatever your currency is, we'll publish it. That's a red flag because you don't know if your article's been accepted yet. So you do not want to associate yourself with any journals that have shady publishing practices because the problem is that now that's a stamp that you are dealing with those institutions. So it's very important to pick the right journal. It's very important to know the journal that you're dealing with. Number three is, if there's an organization that has a journal behind their name, like ISQA has two journals, right? We have the International Journal for Quality, and we have the International Journal for Quality in Healthcare Communications, right? So we have two journals in ISQA backed or sanctioned by an organization. So most oftentimes when journals are sanctioned by organizations, they are more reputable. So that's what you want to look for as well as the other things I shared. And as quality folks, CEOs, lab people, all the folks that are on the call today, we often look for what are the metrics that we should look for in a journal. And so this list under number 4 is not an all-inclusive list, but there's some of the high-level items that you might want to look for if you're thinking about a journal. The first is something called impact factor. And the impact factor is like the average number of times that the journal is published. And they have two sort of tiers. There's 2-year journal impact factor and there's 5-year. So this can get quite complicated, I would say, but you can always reach out and ask the journal, about their publishing practices. There's another indice called altmetrics. And altmetrics is something that's relatively new. You might have seen it called plum metrics, but altmetrics is looking at how much interaction in a journal or its articles get on the internet. So are they being tweeted? Are they being mentioned in blogs, Facebook, LinkedIn? How many downloads are there? You'll see this a lot with different journals. And so you can look at this as an indicator if getting the word out to a broad audience is important to you. The other here, as we get to at the end, is the immediacy index, which is the number of times an article is cited in the same year it's published. That means that people found an article, maybe if you publish something and it's interesting to them, they're passing the word on, and that they're using the information. So that shows you that the article in the journal has a lot of uptake in the community. And SJR is another weighted citation indice by an organization called Scopus, if you know about it, and it's also looking for citations. So these are some of the things when you're thinking about publishing in a journal that you should look for. I would say there's probably a list of probably about 10 things, but you know, these are things to pay attention to. So considerations. So I put the little process that I created here in the first slide back up, because what I want to show you is I want to demonstrate a mindset. So when I was the chief quality officer at a hospital here in the United States, you know, my job was to improve the care of my patients, to reduce harm, to increase our metrics in certain areas. I wasn't really thinking about publishing per se. So as you run your projects, you know, I'd like to challenge everybody on the webinar today to really think about what you're doing. Now, all of us document probably pretty well what we're doing, but I would say document awesomely if you think about publishing, because what you want to show when you're publishing is the before data, so the current state data. You want to show and talk about the process, what you did, and then show the data once you're done. This is the thing in journals that we're looking for, the impact. So, you know, there was a problem, you ran a Plan, Do, Study, Act, and now the data has shifted. That's a big deal. The other thing is, if you're running projects and you're able to show visualizations, like through Lean, like process mapping or value stream mapping, those types of visualizations are very important if you're publishing, because again, you want readers to be able to see what you're doing. And in the journal, I can tell you, in our journal, we appreciate that. We appreciate visualizations, tables. Those things are important to demonstrate so people can see what you did. Because ultimately, the reason that we go through such a rigorous peer review process is that we want the results to be reproducible. We want someone in Indonesia to, if they submit a project, to be able, that someone over in the Middle East could pick that article up and run nearly the same article and get close to the same result within some type of era. So, and then, you know, other considerations for projects might be if you have gained a new perspective on some method that's been out there for a while, some established method. So let's say you learn something new after running a Lean project in a resource constrained location. Well, that's something that's important because everybody around the world has rural areas, right? So that's good, something that you might consider publishing. Also, let's say you found a way to apply Six Sigma in a way that hadn't been previously thought about. I mean, and you get a great result from that, and it's sustainable and spreadable. So that's also something that you might consider publishing. One of the things, as I said earlier, is ensure with your entire process that you are documenting well. It's so important. I would just save everything, especially the before and after, because you definitely want to show impact in that regard. So now let me take you to International IJCOMS, which is our shortened sort of acronym for our journal. We are a peer-reviewed, blind, open access and international journal that's out of IHQSA, and we are focused on quality and safety in healthcare. But our focus here, I have it bolded here, is implementation science, which is why I'm so happy that you're all here as folks that are doing the work every day or leading those people, because we want to be, IJCOMS was created with the spirit of, we want to be able to share worldwide what people are doing. You know, we like theory, you know, journals like to publish about theoretical things, but our focus is more about implementation, because we want someone in Egypt to pick up a publication from the United States and say, wow, they implemented a sepsis protocol across their hospital, and here's how they did it, and here's the result, so that they could possibly replicate that. That's very important to us. So some of the areas, and you can look at the website, I'll have it here at the end, but we're interested in, you know, health services research and evaluation, technology assessments when you're thinking about or implementing HIT, or maybe you're in a country that doesn't have a great electronic record and you implement that and you can show how it changed your care, that's something that would be great. Anything around economics of healthcare, cost containment and utilization, those are all great topics. Also nursing care research and protocols. Now I'll tell you that our frame about this is pretty unique because I've been around a lot of journals in my career, and very few, I haven't seen any that publish or focus on implementation. So we're very happy to receive your journals and your manuscripts if you have them. But I want to share some things if you think about IJCOMS and say, I'd love to do that, Rich. Well, here's some things to focus on. So I want everybody to remember that, you know, our journal is published in English. So we need everyone to focus on, you know, as best use as possible of English. Because what happens is, remember I told you earlier that our peer reviewers are volunteer, you know, we want to send them a good product. So we probably would not be able to send an article out if we can't understand it. Remember, the first step in peer review is it comes to the editor and we read it. And if it's so difficult to read because it's, you know, written difficult in a difficult way, it may not make it through that first cut. And we want your work to move forward. But, you know, and we certainly, if English is an issue, please find a mechanism to you know, work on that. If you're thinking about our journal, use charts and graphs, show your data, show what you've done. If you've done a great process map, put that process map in there. If you've done a great chart or you have great charts, put them in there. The more visually stimulating the material is, the more people will read it. And so that's what we want. We want people to read and we want people to understand. And think, like, as I said before, about cause and effect. You ran a project, and because of that project, here is the outcome. Your project changed some process, and then you show the result. That's very important to think about when you are thinking about IJCOMS. Then ensure that you proofread your submission before sending. I'll tell you, I do a lot of writing, either for classes or for books or journals. You know, you might be the best writer in the world, but you know, when you're too close to it, sometimes you can't see the issues with it. So what I do, a practice I do, is when I'm writing, I write and then I put it down and I come back and pick it up maybe a day later, right? And then I see all these mistakes. I'm like, wow, I didn't even notice that. So ensure you proofread yourself. If you have another person that you could send it to just say, hey, put your eyes on this to make sure it looks good, that would be awesome. And so last couple of things, if you do send something to IJCOMS, let's say we ask you for revisions, which is pretty normal, you always want to address the reviewers or editors' concerns specifically. So, you know, you don't, if we tell you, you know, fix this chart, or this paragraph is out of order, or focus on your statistics, you know, we'll give you specific items. So address those things specifically, and that will help move your paper through quickly when, you know, after you've revised the paper. And the last thing here, which takes some time to be comfortable with, is rejection is not an uncommon thing with journals. Actually, the more prestigious journals like Lancet and, you know, Journal of American Medical Association, they have a high rejection rate. They're hard to get into, and that's because they're so competitive and all that. You know, same with our journal, we have a high standard. But just remember, if something happened and you submit a journal article or manuscript and it's rejected, that's not a slight on you. All it is an opportunity for you to improve. What you can do if your journal article is ever rejected from any journal, not just IJCOMS, is, you know, take the feedback, you know, positively, clean it up, and then send it to another journal. What I found is that, you know, that process of learning that comes from a rejection, if you embrace that, you'll actually become a better writer and a better researcher. So I want to just pause now. We have about 20 minutes for any questions. I'd love to have your questions. You can, however you'd like to do it, Dr. Ochi, if you want people to put in the chat, or if you want people to just speak up, that's fine too.
Yes, I think we can take either of them, but Rich, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. So questions, any comments, you can raise your hand. I think one of the questions I have seen Zinyad answer is on cost of publication. And I see the response is that in the IJCOMS journal, if the corresponding author is based in one of the countries included in our Developing Countries Initiative, your article will be eligible for a full waiver of the open access charge. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you, Sinead. And so that's a good point. So if you're in a country that's categorized as LMIC or other type of classification, you can get a waiver or a discount. So we know that article processing fees can be a barrier of entry, but thank goodness for our leadership at IHQSA that they worked hard to try and be upfront and mitigate some of that. So we hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. I think there's a question is asking, what is your opinion about the SQUIRE methodology, Standards for Quality Improvement Reporting Excellence?
What is my
what's your opinion?
SQUIRE.
Yep, SQUIRE.
Well, I think it's great. SQUIRE to me is, if you're familiar with PICO, and there's different. So let me start here because everyone may not know. So there's different for the good of the group. There are different types of frameworks out there for publishing research. There's PICO if you're in the clinical realm. There's if you're doing health administration type research, there's something called Eclipse. There's SQUIRE. So I think all of these methods are good if you're doing systematic reviews or scoping reviews. You just have to pick the right one based on the type of research you're doing. But I think SQUIRE is fine if it meets the need for what you're doing. I'm not sure what the individual who is doing it, what type of research you're working on, but it just needs to fit, the pattern for what type of research you're doing. But I think that they're fine. I think all of them are. It just depends. It's like a menu. You pick the one that you need based on what works best for you. Other questions?
Sorry. There's a comment about systematic and scoping reviews and whether you need them registered before submission.
Well, whether you need them registered. So systematic reviews and scoping reviews, scoping reviews, you all for the benefit of everyone, scoping reviews are done when you are looking at a subject and there's not a lot out there and you're trying to see what the body of knowledge says. Systematic reviews are more narrowly focused, where you're looking for a lot of published articles to do some type of meta-analysis or other. So the question was about registration. I think it's always good to register. Joanna Briggs has some information about that. Joanna Briggs, I think it's out of Australia. There's also another organization. There are different organizations you can register with. But let me just say I've done a scoping review that's about to get published in another journal, but the purpose in registering them is for two things. It's for, making sure that your item they don't really screen it, but it's to make sure that you're not working on something that someone else has already done. Because most of the areas that you register, you go and you search to see if your project is there already. So it's more to help you not duplicate your efforts if someone else has already done a scoping review or a systematic review on your topic. So I think it's good from that perspective because I don't like to waste time. So that's my understanding of why they want you to register. So great question.
Yes, thank you. So it says we usually work through specific model, PDSA, CIPOC, Kaizen, while the papers usually written in different way. Transforming the model into paper formatting is challenging. What's your advice?
I agree. And one of the things that we at our journal, because we're focused on implementation, I think our editor-in-chief is probably going to come out with some guidance here soon. We don't want to turn you all into academicians, right? To write papers. We want you to be able to write in a coherent way, but in a way that shares your project. So I think there'll be some guidance that comes out. I agree. If you're running a Kaizen project, there's a certain way to do a Kaizen, right? So I think that in the future, we're going to put out some guidance about that. But I hear you. It's difficult to, got to put it in APA format and all that good stuff or so it's a challenge, but that's unfortunately some of that is we can't get rid of because you have to, have it written a certain way. But we're going to do our best to try to make it, more streamlined for you, so it's not burdensome, because we don't want that to be the reason that you don't put your work out there.
Okay. I think there's another question on it. Says, I have a question. What is the guidance to identify the type of article?
Okay, the type of submission?
Yes, I'm sure.
So on our website, you can go to ISQA and look up journals, or you can just type in International Journal for Quality in Healthcare Communications and look at our site. We have a more lengthy list there that you can look at the different types of papers that we like to receive. So please check that out. Sinead, I don't know if you're here, if you don't mind putting that link in the chat, if you have it available for the site. So she just did that. Thank you, Sinead, from ISQA. So you can click on there and it'll tell you the types of articles. If you have any questions, you also can reach out to us, the editors. We'll be happy to share with you.
Yeah, Rich, there's this other question. It says, what about ethical considerations? Anything to consider if thinking of publishing before starting the implementation process?
Well, that's a good question, because in academia, if any of you academicians, we go through something called, it just blanked my mind. We go through, we have to put our papers through a process where they vet it, right, for
ethical review.
IRB, yeah, IRB. I don't know why I can't think. I haven't had coffee. It's morning here, so. So we go through something called an internal review board that looks to make sure that our research is ethical and so forth. Oftentimes, I'll say here in the United States with quality improvement projects, they don't go through that same rigorous process. They do go through a process. But if I were advising you, though, having been a former executive, I think I would probably want to know if you were going to publish something for my department or my hospital in a journal. So I would say, you know, as far as ethical considerations, make sure that you check in with whomever in your organization handles, you know, if you don't have a ethicist or an IRB, check in with the person that does the communication with the outside world. Just make sure that you don't blindside your leadership if you put something out there, because again, the results may be less than flattering, right? And you don't want to have a conflict there. So that's a good question. The ethical considerations, if you're dealing with any type of human interaction or animal interaction, I would say that from the journal, we're probably going to be a little bit strenuous on that and make sure that it's gone through IRB, because there are research rules about how you treat subjects. And so that's a good question. And you know, we do want to see, though, that it's been through some type of clearinghouse or a stamp that, you know, it's okay to publish. It's a good question.
Thank you. Any other question, comments? I think there was another question that was also related to the ethical. It says, does your journal require specific ethical permissions?
We do not. We would like for it to go through IRB. I think our editor-in-chief is probably going to you know, be talking about that more upcoming. Now, again, it's strange because quality improvement projects in the world I came from in a hospital, that we didn't have an IRB they went through. We would run a project, we'd implement, and then move on. But my guidance for now is, if you don't have an IRB or internal review board, then make sure that your leadership on some level has seen it. You don't want to surprise your leadership, because that might be a negative outcome, you know, career-wise. You don't want it to be career-altering because you put something out there that that you shouldn't have. So.
Thank you.
But this has been great. I want to just thank Dr. Ochi and Dr. Gilbert and all of you for taking time out of your day today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also very accessible via Dr. Ochi here. So please reach out. Someone asked another question here.
Yeah, someone is asking the cost implications and any room for waivers.
Yes, we said that a little earlier. So if you are in a category of country that ISQA considers maybe developing, or there's discounts, and there's also ability to give a full waiver, you know, and that's at the discretion of the editor-in-chief, Dr. Sachs.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Any other question or comments?
So, Elom, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
I want to believe I speak for many on this platform. We are totally intimidated by the word publishing. we have discussions with colleagues and they say, Gilbert, write it, publish it. And I ask myself, publish what? And what do I do? Yeah, so we have a lot of memory and we've got, so that my real input and question is, what is the, the space for opinions, the space for commentaries? Because most people, I believe, have done many things for which the before data and after data doesn't exist. But we do have a fairly decent recollection of what we did, how we did it, and whatever learning and lessons we can share. How does that work out for the publication space? Over.
That's a fabulous question, Gilbert. Thank you. So there's two avenues. So first, as an editor, I can write an editorial about something. So that's one way. I could do an editorial on a submission that you put in. The other is we invite commentaries as well. So for example, if you look at the most recent publication, we have a lot of commentaries from experts around the world or from people doing the work. So you can also submit your article as a perspective, which you're giving your perspective as a researcher or practitioner. You also can write perspectives, and I forget the other name, commentaries as well. We invite those as well, so you can do that also. So we actually would love to have that.
Dr. Greenhill, if I can follow up on that, I'm so much in agreement with the previous viewpoint, because we are practitioners and we may not always be recognized as experts. And that's why I wonder how much our viewpoints and commentaries can be accepted. For example, in my case, we have implemented a great project in Cambodia, and throughout the implementation, we recognize that when we create synergies between different quality improvement interventions, like continuous professional development and quality improvement collaborative or quality improvement collaborative and accreditation, we see that it accelerates and the path to high quality health system. And we want to write about it, but we were not planning to, we didn't have methodology. We didn't think about this 3 years ago, but throughout these 3 years, we learned that it's a great thing. And I'm struggling, should it be a commentary? Should it be a field action report? And then how it will be perceived if I'm not somebody who publishes one article a year? Thank you.
Well, that's a great question. I might mess your name up, Nilufar. I hope that's correct.
Yes.
So we welcome it. So I use the word expert advisedly. Expert, you are an expert because you're doing the work. I mean, you don't have to have a big title or be a professor or whatever. I mean, you all are the frontline or mid-level people that are doing the work. So your article would be welcomed if you can show and share what you did. And so commentaries are of that nature, where people are giving their perspectives based on what they've done. And so I think it would be welcome. I mean, it sounds very exciting as you were talking. I'm like, wow, I'd love to hear that. So I would say submit it. Don't be intimidated because you're not a professor or you don't have a big title. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've made a difference, and you can demonstrate that in writing. And if it doesn't meet the level of a journal article, maybe there's a commentary or perspective or a Frontiers article, or like you said, the other category you mentioned. So certainly open to that. I don't want anyone to walk away and think because you're not a CEO or an editor that you can't submit or So all of you are experts in your respective areas. And if you have questions, you can reach out to me directly. I'm happy to chat with you about your idea. If you want to, now I can't guarantee you it'll be published, but if you just want to reach out, if you have a question or you're concerned about something, I'll be happy to field those items, because I want you to feel comfortable. I've been a practitioner, I've been an executive, I've been at the front line. I know what you're saying. I didn't feel like I was an expert either, but in retrospect, like I did a great job, right? So like you're probably doing, so don't in any way feel intimidated about that.
Great, thank you. Any other Okay, so any other question or comments?
They're asking for my email, so I'm
Yeah,
going to put it here.
so Rich, I think you can share from your end quickly than me, but I can copy from my, yeah, okay, so it's there. So any other question, comments? So you know where to go. I mean, if you have anything you want to share, and it is good we share for all the reasons that Rich has given, so that we can also learn, those in Ghana can learn what is happening elsewhere. I mean, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Kenya, all over in the US, Ireland. I mean, it facilitates learning. So you don't have to be intimidated.
All of us people with gray hair, I don't have hair anymore, but I have gray hair on my face. All of us started at the front line. So none of us were born, experts. So like Ilom said, don't feel any kind of way intimidated. We're all down to earth, and we're here to help you. So we're here to help each other. So I feel like I'm talking to my global family this morning here in this evening there. And I really appreciate you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, feel free. Some of us are part of the editorial team, so we can support you also for free before you submit to Rich.
Right.
Before you submit to Rich and Emma.
Ilom is also on our editorial committee. He's one of our editorial apprentices. So once he serves some time, he'll go and he's set up to become an editor. So he's on that trajectory as well. So we're happy to have him.
Yeah. So Sinead, forgive me, anytime, every day I massacre your name, but she has also, yes. So if you are an AfIHQSA member or you are a fellow of AfIHQSA, kindly send your name and your email address, and you can send to Sinead. You can also send to me at this email address. We will do a compilation, and then you can have your credit points. This program is accredited by AfIHQSA for AfIHQSA fellows for two CPD points or 2 credits. So if you are, kindly send me an email. I have shared the email address with you. So please don't use the chat, even though I am saving the chat. So just send me an email. AfIHQSA@gmail.com, or you use smcadle@afIHQSA.com, and then you will get your credit points. So I think if there are no questions, I don't know whether Sinead, you would like to make any quick comments, and then Gilbert will close us. And then maybe before Sinead, okay, so after Sinead, then maybe if Rich will do any last comment, and then Gilbert will close us. Okay, so I've seen your mic up. Please go ahead. Thank you.
I really just want to thank both Rich and yourself, Ilom, for this. It was very interesting, and I think I can see a lot of names on the session. I know quite a lot of our fellows have joined in, so I'm sure they've all learned and appreciated from this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So Rich, any last final words, and then Gilbert will close us?
Not really. Just thank you again, everyone. There's some more questions there around will there be other types of sessions on quality improvement, but those are for you probably, Ilom. But thank you all. I appreciate your time, and please keep in touch on LinkedIn or via email. And if I can ever help you otherwise, I'm more than happy to collaborate or do what I can. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. And the presentation will be available on the YouTube channel for AfIHQSA, and I mean it's on Facebook Live as well, so you can follow and download from there as well. So thank you all very much. Gilbert, over to you.
Yes, so again, thank you very much, Richard. It's been fantastic listening to you, and thank you all for being here. At least I am leaving with one fear resolved, that I can just put my thoughts on paper, and in itself, it can be put out as a published statement. It would be interesting along the line for the practitioners amongst us if there is some way to give some simple guidance. I like the focus on implementation science, but something on operational research. The guys on the field, we are not so busy about double blind, triple blind, and all those things. It doesn't make sense to us, but we know we are making change, we're making impact. So if the journal could give some guidelines, some broad sweeps of what should you write, how do you put it together, I'm very sure we could get a whole movement of practical things people are doing, and we leave you to do the editorial and tighten it to make it sense for us. But having said that, I am really appreciative of all the comments. We thank you all for participating. ISQA, we will keep collaborating with ISQA as AfIHQSA, and we are in a movement together to save the world. And that is not just a slogan, we mean it. So thank you all very much, Rich. Great to see you again. And thank you all participants. Right. Thanks. Have a lovely day.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.
Good. So I am ending the meeting. Good.